We're a long way today from the Prohibition era in years and in policy. Where temperance was the cause of the day back then, now liberalization is the mantra. Dan Malleck is an associate professor in health sciences at Brock University in St. Catharines, and his book, Try to Control Yourself, The Regulation of Public Drinking in Post-Prohibition Ontario, surveys that change. And Dan Malleck joins us now for more. Nice to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
What did Ontario's system look like before Prohibition, which is going back how many years now? It's almost 100 years.
Yeah, Prohibition started in 1916.
Okay.
So before that, it was a gradual tightening up of the laws. So if you go back to, say, the 1860s, a lot of people complain that it's wide open drinking, a lot of drunkenness, especially in smaller towns.
In the streets.
Yeah, that was the image. Often, in some communities, the municipalities would issue more licenses than probably they needed because it was a revenue source and because the taverns were a politically powerful place, right? You know, the publican, the tavern owner had a lot of sway over his patrons. So local politicians would kind of cater to them, right? So there's a lot of concern about public drunkenness, too many licenses. When you have to pay for a license and there's a lot of competition, you have to drop the prices, so it was cheap booze and things like that. But then over the next 30 to 40 years, the government of Oliver Mowat, the Liberal government at the time, the Liberals were in power for 32 years, gradually sort of increased the restrictions.
This is towards the end of the 1800s.
Towards the end of the 1800s
and
into the and this was in response to a temperance movement that wanted prohibition and a liquor industry that obviously didn't, but also a lot of sort of local, I guess you'd say, experiments where they found that a local prohibition law just wasn't working because people still wanted it. But by the early 20th century, the prohibition seemed a little more appealing. They had cranked up the license to such the cost of license to such an extent that there were fewer places to drink. And the war brought on a new imperative to actually stop drinking altogether.
First World War.
Yeah, the First World War. And that was partly on a resource allocation issue, partly on a human resource allocation issue, right? It got people drinking instead of working. And so across the country, actually, in most provinces, prohibition was enacted during the war. There were a few provinces that had it before, but during the war was when it happened.
In Ontario, it happened during the war.
In Ontario, it happened in 1916.
And was it Premier Hearst who brought it in? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was Hearst, yeah.
Okay, and after he brings in prohibition, do people's drinking habits actually change because they can't buy booze in public anymore?
Yes, yeah, they do change. We see this across the board, but also their habits on the amount of illegality increases, right? Because people still wanted it. There was never a time when a majority of adults voted against or didn't want prohibition. There was never a time when a majority wanted prohibition. And that's a problem with enforcement. If you have, say, even 50% plus one vote for prohibition, and we didn't have a vote for prohibition in 1916, it was just a law that was passed. But if 50% one vote for prohibition, that means 49% don't want it, right? And so you're going to see illegal behavior. Illegal behavior being behavior that normally would be legal, right? So people had a problem with that. And we hear about the stories in the US of the Speakeasies and rum runners and that. And Canada was part of that.
You know what? We should just take a pause because we have a lot of new Canadians who watch this show. Okay. And the expression a speakeasy is something they may not know what it is.
Sure. A speakeasy was, we see these in sort of Hollywood movies, a place where people could go and drink. It was illegal. Sometimes you had to have a password at the door. All of these images we get from Hollywood existed in some of the bigger cities. Often what we would see in, and the image of them is like a real party place, lots of jazz music, lots of kind of maybe sexually liberal behavior, a lot of drinking. That's the stereotype of the speakeasy. And that is something that did exist in jurisdictions where the policing was a little lax because a lot of the cops wanted to drink too, so they didn't really see a point in prohibition. It was hard to enforce for that reason. But also Canadian and Ontario businesses were also involved in smuggling because even during Prohibition, except during the war, the federal government cracked down on distilling, but the provincial governments, that was not within their purview. So because of the way our Constitution's laid out, right? So trade and commerce is a federal responsibility. So during the war, they could restrict distilling to scientific, medicinal, and actually booze is used in some armaments. And then after the war, distilling was still legal. So distilleries were cranking it out and selling it somewhere else.
I love the medicinal angle here. You know, you remember former Premier Bill Davis?
Yes.
To this day, he refers to alcohol as antibiotics. Because somehow, because his mother was very pro-temperance, and if they called it antibiotics, they'd be allowed to have it in the household. But I think that attitude was prevalent back then, right, with a certain generation.
It was prevalent because alcohol was was used in medicine and was medicine itself. It was seen as a stimulant. It would be used in tonic purposes, and it was also a lot of medicines. A lot of drugs were not, before we had a lot of pills, a lot of drugs were not soluble in water. So you would get a powder, and this is where the term "take a powder" came from. You get a powder, and you'd have to dissolve it in something. So you dissolve it in alcohol. It's called a tincture, and then you take it. Opium was that way. Opium tinctures were popular. And they're also very effective in what they did. But alcohol itself was also used.
Now, what was this business about the local option? What did that refer to?
Yeah, so local option was this idea, and I mentioned those experiments earlier. Local option was, we had local option laws since before Confederation, and local option meant an individual community could vote itself dry. In other words, you couldn't sell or obviously buy. Well, no, you couldn't sell in that community. And so back in the 18th, and this is something that was tried around the world in different jurisdictions. But back in the 1860s, we had a law that allowed discrete municipalities like townships, towns, all the way up to cities and counties, vote themselves dry. But as you can imagine, if the town next to you is not dry, it really wasn't all that effective. I mean, I was raised in a town that was actually dry until...
Which one?
It was a little town outside of London called Thorndale, and it was dry until 1984. And
well, we had that in the West End of Toronto.
Yes, and different communities had that. In Thorndale, we just didn't really think about it because you go to London, and I wasn't drinking at the time anyway. I was 16 when it changed. But
I'm sure you weren't drinking, I'm sure.
Okay. Anyway, that's a whole different. But when it came, when they voted to change it, it was just sort of why is this law happening, right? But those things existed in those systems existed, but they were not very effective. And then we had a federal law called the Canada Temperance Act from 1878 that made it county or city-based. And that was also not effective. There was at one point, there was over 25% of the counties in Ontario were dry, but within about 4 years, they all voted themselves. They all ended it because it just wasn't effective, and they were finding that people were actually breaking the law more obviously, but also just it just wasn't doing the job.
It was a big deal in Toronto and the West End because in the 1940s, the Premier lost his seat. Premier Drew in the West End of Toronto. He was defeated by an anti-booze crusader named Bill Temple.
Yeah, and there were a lot of, and Toronto was I don't know if it still is, a hotbed of temperance. So when the LCBO came in,
which was when?
After 1927, when Prohibition ended, each community was different, but they really were stepping on. Like they had to step very carefully around Toronto.
And what was the LCBO's mandate at the time when it was created?
It was this idea called disinterested management, and so this was something when governments had tried to restrict alcohol up until Prohibition by putting restrictions on the market, but still allowing it to be within the open market, right? So basically market-based controls, higher license fees, taxes, things like that, reduced numbers of licenses. But people started to say, this substance is itself such a problem socially that maybe we need to get it out of the market. So we create something called disinterested management.
Okay, but I don't get this. Because on the one hand, the LCBO takes all the spirits and liquors and wines and so on and says the government is going to be responsible for selling them.
Yes.
But the brewers' retail, which today we call the beer store, they allowed the brewers, the private interest, to be responsible for retailing that.
Yes.
How did that make sense?
It made sense because spirits were considered much more dangerous than beer. A lot of people argued that beer and light wine were temperance drinks, so-called temperance drinks, because they were moderation. And temperance originally was tempering your behavior, not drinking. A lot of the prohibitionists didn't agree with that. And it also came down to the breweries having a lot of power, right? So even before Prohibition, we had a warehousing system because beer was bulky, and so you couldn't just put it in a store in the middle of town. So the breweries, I don't know if the breweries before Prohibition worked together on this, but when Prohibition ended, the breweries were allowed to create their co-op called the Brewers Retail System, but they were still inspected. There was still an inspector on site, a government inspector. So there was that kind of oversight. But you're right, so that wasn't disinterested. That was because disinterested management is the idea that profit is not the motive for the person selling it. So if you run a store and you profit off liquor and you take that profit and buy a new house or a car or whatever, that's interested management, right? So the idea was that the manager's job was to control access to it, and they were rewarded by the way they, if they would flag people as problematic and maybe heavy drinkers, if families would write in or speak to the manager and say, please don't sell my son or my husband, or usually it was a man, a son or husband, booze, they were rewarded for that kind of controlling behavior.
But what's interesting is that system, which is almost 100 years old that you've described, it's kind of the template for where we are today still, is it not?
Well, it is in the sense that we have the province runs the sales. There is a one-way glass in every store that maybe they're watching us, I don't know. But the difference now is the way it has transformed into much more of a retail-based. It's interested in sales, not in profiting from sales. That's really still politically
They're not
tricky.
a disinterested seller anymore.
They're not disinterested.
They're very interested in making $2.5 billion a year off us.
Yes, and that's where it gets into interesting politics today, where it's profitable, but the profit goes directly to the province, and so you assume if the province is a government elected by the people, then it would be responsible to the people, as opposed to just private interests. And this is where we got into these issues around the beer store and the LCBO back in about 2015, when they were saying, this is a private monopoly versus a public monopoly, right? So,
but as you look at look at the pace of history over the past century. We had it, then there was Prohibition in place, and we weren't allowed to have it. It was very mysterious, and booze would be evil, and so on and so forth. Would you say ever since then, though, we've been in a constant attempt to kind of liberalize sales?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that Prohibition was the high point or the low point, depending on
your point of view, yeah.
of liquor restriction. But it wasn't, a lot of people look at Prohibition as this radical change. It wasn't. It was a gradual process to the point where Prohibition, even though it was fairly significant to just stop selling, liquor had been increasingly restricted, and access points to it, the cost of it had been restricted. So yeah, since then, we saw in 1927 we got liquor stores, but it wasn't until 1934 that we had public drinking of beer and wine, beer in hotel beverage rooms, wine and beer in hotel dining rooms. It was all centered on the hotel, which was a pre-prohibition format. The hotel was already a managed business, so you already had a manager running a bigger business. So it was kind of disinterested management because they weren't supposed to be profiting from the booze. They were supposed to profit from the hotel business, and booze was just part of, if you have a dining room, you should be able to have a drink. If you're at home, you should be able to have a drink. Hotel is a home away from home, so you should be able to have a drink there, right? And then in 1946, they allowed spirits to be sold in these places, and they increased the types of places. So they had lounges that were removed from hotels. So yeah, it was a gradual change away from it, but it was always this tension between people wanting to drink and people concerned about over drinking and concerned about too liberal of access.
Well, let's look in the last 3.5 decades or so. It was 1985 that then Premier David Peterson promised beer and wine in the corner stores. Never actually happened. It finally happened under Kathleen Wynne's premiership, and now you're seeing Premier Ford take it to the next step, which is a quite significant liberalization of sales, 9 o'clock in the morning, many more outlets that are going to be available. Is there any empirical evidence that you can point to as to what happens to a society when you dramatically open the taps for liquor sales?
There has been some. I can't think of it off the top of my head because I go back historically to the 1860s when it was a municipal-based, fairly wide-open system, and there was a lot of concern. And that's not the roots of the temperance movement. It's much earlier than that. But the temperance movement really kicked into high gear in the 1860s and 70s. So. And this is because of concerns over public disorder, concerns over the effect on the family, concerns in the sense of money going out of the family purse.
We're hearing these arguments again today.
We hear them again. And the temperance movement never disappeared. It still exists, and it often manifests itself in public health arguments, right? So it's no longer about the morality of society, it's about the health of society. And so we jump to these conclusions, people will jump to these conclusions based on sometimes not really convincing evidence because they're going to break towards the problem. Like
so as the Ford government considers its position today, it's announced what it wants to do, but just finally, what should it take into account based on what you know of the history of this movement?
I would say that it needs to, there's this tendency to want to just make big policy announcements, but it does need to tread carefully, if only because the optics of radical changes can have blowback effects, right? They can have negative political effects. So if they're thinking politically, you got to be careful because there is that balance that still will occur. Premier Ford says things like, we're all adults here. And it's true that people drinking are adults, but not all people after they've been drinking act like adults, right? So there's a bit of a policing issue or a surveillance issue that needs to be considered. I don't think really that a 9 o'clock opening is a problem, really.
Well, some people getting off all-night shifts obviously want to be able to have a pint after work.
Yeah, and not to mention that it's going to be in an environment that's already controlled, right? It's there's a license holder, they have bartenders and servers and that whose job is to kind of keep an eye on people. More concern might be for things like the tailgating, right? Which is actively, I would argue, actively encouraging overdrinking. And that's where people that's where opposition will target, and I don't mean political opposition, but opposition to drinking will target their concern. They'll say, look at what's happening under this government, right? And that could be a problem. At the same time, overly restrictive policies
They don't work either.
They don't work either because prohibition was the most, we didn't even have the most restrictive type of prohibition in Canada because they could still distill. It didn't work because people still wanted to drink.
As with everything in politics, you got to find the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Can I plug your book? Would you mind?
Please.
Try to Control Yourself, Dan. That is the title of your book. Try to Control Yourself, the Regulation of Public Drinking in Post-Prohibition Ontario. Dan Malleck from Brock University. Thanks so much for coming into TVO tonight.
My pleasure.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.